Another bath? Egg said, dismayed. You washed yesterday. And then I spent the day in armor, swimming in my sweat. Close your lips and fill the kettle. You washed the night Sir Eustace took us into service, Egg pointed out. And last night? And now? That's 3 times, sir. I need to treat with a highborn lady. Do you want me to turn up before her high seat smelling like Cerberus? You would have to roll in a tub of Maester's droppings to smell as bad as that, sir. Egg filled the kettle. Sam Stoops says the Castellan at Coldmoat is as big as you are. Lucas Inchfield is his name, but he's called the Long Inch for his size. Do you think he's as big as you are, sir? No. It had been years since Dunk had met anyone as tall as he was. He took the kettle and hung it above the fire. Will you fight him? No. Dunk almost wished it had been otherwise. He might not be the greatest fighter in the realm, but size and strength could make up for many lacks. Not for a lack of wits, though, he thought to himself. He was no good with words, and worse with women. This giant, Lucas Longinch, did not daunt him half so much as the prospect of facing the Red Widow did. I'm going to talk to the Red Widow. That's all. What will you tell her, sir? That she has to take the dam down. You must take down your dam, milady, or else. I'll ask her to take down the dam, I mean. Please give back our checky water, if it pleases her. A little water, milady, if it please you. Sir Eustace would not want him to beg. How do I say it then? The water soon began to steam and bubble. Help me lug this to the tub, Dunk told the boy. Together, they lifted the kettle from the hearth and crossed the cellar to the big wooden tub. I don't know how to talk with highborn ladies, he confessed as they were pouring. We both might have been killed in Dorne on account of what I said to Lady Vaith. Lady Vaith was mad, Egg reminded him. But you could have been more gallant. Ladies like it when you're gallant. If you were to rescue the Red Widow the way you rescued that puppet girl from Arion. Arion's in lease, and the widow's not in want for rescuing. He did not want to talk of Tansel. Tansel Too Tall was her name, but she was not too tall for me, Dunk said to himself. Well, the boy said, some knights sing gallant songs to their ladies, or play them tunes upon a lute. I have no lute. Dunk looked morose. And that night, I drank too much in the Planky Town. He told me I sang like an ox in a mud wallow. I had forgotten, sir. How could you forget? You told me to forget, sir, said Egg, all innocence. You told me I'd get a clout in the ear the next time I ever mentioned it. There will be no singing, even if he had the voice for it. The only song Dunk knew all the way through was the Bear, and Maiden Fair. He doubted that would do much to win over Lady Weber. The kettle was steaming once again. They wrestled it over to the tub and upended it. Egg drew water to fill it for the third time, then clambered back onto the well. You'd best not take any food or drink at Coldmoat, sir. The Red Widow poisoned all her husbands. I'm not like to marry her. She's a highborn lady, and I'm Dunk of Fleabottom, remember? He frowned. Just how many husbands has she had? Do you know? 4, said Egg, but no children. Whenever she gives birth, a demon comes by night to carry off the issue. Sam Stoops' wife says she sold her babes unborn to the Lord of the Seven Hells, so he'd teach her his black arts. Highborn ladies don't meddle with the black arts. They dance and sing and do embroidery. Maybe she dances with demons and embroiders evil spells, Egg said with relish. And how would you know what highborn ladies do, sir? Lady Faith is the only one you've ever known. That was insolent, but it was true. Might be I don't know any highborn ladies, but I know a boy who's asking for a good clout in the air. Dunk rubbed the back of his neck. A day in chainmail always left it hard as wood. You've known queens and princesses. Did they dance with demons and practice the black arts? Lady Shira does. Lord Bloodraven's paramour. She bathes in blood to keep her beauty. And once, my sister Ray put a love potion in my drink so I'd marry her instead of my other sister Dela. Egg spoke as if such incest was the most natural thing in the world. For him it is. The Targaryens had been marrying brother to sister for hundreds of years to keep the blood of the dragon pure, though the last actual dragon had died before Dunk was born. The Dragon Kings went on. Maybe the gods don't mind them marrying their sisters. Did the potion work? Dunk asked. It would have, said Egg, but I spit it out. I don't want a wife. I want to be a knight of the King's Guard and live only to serve and defend my king. The King's Guard are sworn not to wed. That's a noble thing. But when you're older, you may find you'd sooner have a girl than a white cloak. Dunk was thinking of Tansel Too Tall and the way she'd smiled at him at Ashford. Sir Eustace said I was the sort of man he'd hoped to have his daughter wed. Her name was Alison. She's dead, sir. I know she's dead, said Dunk, annoyed. If she was alive, he said if she was, he'd like her to marry me, or someone like me. I never had a lord offer me his daughter before. His dead daughter? And the Osgraves might have been lords in the old days, but Sir Eustace is only a landed knight now. I know what he is. Do you want a cloud in the air? Well, said Egg, I'd sooner have a clout than a wife, especially a dead wife, sir. Oh, the kettle's steaming. They carried the water to the tub, and Dunk pulled his tunic over his head. I will wear my Dornish tunic to Codmo. It was sand silk, the finest garment that he owned, painted with his elm and falling star. If you wear it for the ride, it will get all sweaty, sir, Egg said. Wear the one you wore today. I'll bring the other, and you can change when you reach the castle. Before I reach the castle. I'd look a fool changing clothes on the drawbridge. And who said you were coming with me? A knight is more impressive with a squire in his attendance. That was true. The boy had a good sense of such things. He should. He served 2 years as a page at King's Landing. Even so, Dunk was reluctant to take him into danger. Even so, Dunk was reluctant to take him into danger. He had no notion what sort of welcome awaited him at Coldmoat. If this Red Widow was as dangerous as they said, he could end up in a crow cage, like those two men they had seen upon the road. You will stay and help Bennis with the small folk, he told Egg, and don't give me that sullen look. He kicked his breeches off and climbed into the tub of steaming water. Go on and get to sleep now, and let me have my bath. You're not going, and that's the end of it. Egg was up and gone when Dunk awoke, with the light of the morning. Sun in his face. Gods be good. How can it be so hot so soon? He sat up and stretched, yawning, then climbed to his feet and stumbled sleepily down to the well, where he lit a fat tallow candle, splashed some cold water onto his face, and dressed. When he stepped out into the sunlight, Thunder was waiting by the stable, saddled and bridled. Egg was waiting too, with Maester, his mule. The boy had put his boots on. For once, he looked a proper squire, in a handsome doublet of green and gold checks and a pair of tight white woolen breeches. The breeches were torn in the sea, but Sam Stoops' wife had sewn them up for me, he announced. The clothes were Adam's, said Sir Eustace, as he led his own gray gelding from the stall. A checky lion adorned the frayed silk cloak that flowed from the old man's shoulders. The doublet is a trifle, musty from the trunk, but it should serve. A knight is more impressive with a squire in attendance, so I have decided that Egg should accompany you to Coldmoat. Outwitted by a boy of 10, Dunk thought to himself. Dunk looked at Egg and silently mouthed the words, Cloud in the air. The boy grinned. I have something for you as well, Sir Duncan. Come with me. Sir Eustace produced the cloak and shook it out with a flourish. It was white wool, bordered with squares of green satin and cloth of gold. A woolen cloak was the last thing he needed in such heat, but when Sir Eustace draped it about his shoulders, Dunk saw the pride on his face and found himself unable to refuse. Thank you, my lord. It suits you well. Would that I could give you more. The old man's mustache twitched. I sent Sam Stoops down into the cellar to search through my son's things. But Edwin and Harold were smaller men, thinner in the chest and much shorter in the leg. None of what they have left would fit you, sad to say. The cloak is enough, my lord. I won't shame it. I do not doubt that. He gave his horse a pat. I thought I'd ride with you part of the way, if you have no objection. None, my lord. Egg led them down the hill, sitting tall on Maester. Must he wear that floppy straw hat? Sir Eustace asked Dunk. He looks a bit foolish, don't you think? Not so foolish as when his head is peeling, my lord. Even at this hour, with the sun barely above the horizon, it was hot. By afternoon, the saddles will be hot enough to raise blisters. Egg might look elegant in the dead boy's finery, but he would be a boiled egg by nightfall. Dunk at least could change. He had his good tunic in his saddlebag and his green one on his back. We'll take the west way, Sir Eustace announced. It is little used these past years, but still the shortest way from Standfast to Coldmoat Castle. The path took them around back of the hills, past the graves where the old knight had laid his wife and his sons to rest in a thicket of blackberry bushes. They love to pick the berries here, my boys. When they were little, they would come to me with very sticky faces and scratches on their arms, and I known just where they'd been. He smiled fondly. Your egg reminds me of my Adam, a brave boy for one so young. Adam was trying to protect his wounded brother Harold when the battle washed over him. A riverman with 6 acorns on his shield took his arm off with an axe. His sad gray eyes found Dunk's. This old master of yours, the Knight of Pennytree, did he fight in the Blackfire Rebellion? He did, my lord, before he took me on. Dunk had been no more than 3 or 4 at the time, running half naked through the alleys of Flea Bottom, more animal than a boy. Was he for the red dragon or the black? Red or black was a dangerous question, even now. Since the days of Aegon the Conqueror, the arms of House Targaryen had borne a 3-headed dragon, red on black. Daemon, the Pretender, had reversed those colors on his own banners, as many bastards did. Sir Eustace is my liege lord, Dunk reminded himself. He has a right to ask. He fought beneath Lord Hayford's banner, my lord. Green Freddy over gold? A green pale wavy? It might be, my lord. Egg would know. The lad could recite the arms of half of the knights in Westeros. Lord Hayford was a noted loyalist. King Daeron made him his hand just before the battle. Butterwell had done such a dismal job that many questioned his loyalty. But Lord Hayford had been stalwart from the first. Sir Arlen was beside him when he fell. A lord with 3 castles on his shield cut him down. Many good men fell that day, on both sides, said Sir Eustace. The grass was not red before the battle. Did your Sir Arlen tell you that? Sir Arlen never liked to speak about the battle. His squire died there too. Roger of Pennytree was his name. Sir Arlen's sister's son. Even saying the name made Dunk feel vaguely guilty. I stole his place. Only princes and great lords had the means to keep 2 squires. If Egan the Unworthy had given his sword to his heir Daeron instead of his bastard Daemon, there might have never been a Blackfire rebellion, and Roger of Pennytree might be alive today. He would be a knight someplace, a truer knight than me. I would have ended on the gallows, or have been sent off to the Night's Watch to walk the wall until I died. A great battle is a terrible thing, the old knight said. But in the midst of blood and carnage, there is sometimes also beauty. Beauty that would break your heart. I will never forget the way the sun looked when it set upon the red grass field. 10,000 men had died, and the air was thick with moans and lamentations. But above us, the sky turned gold and red and orange. An orange so beautiful it made me weep to know that my sons would never see it. He sighed. It was a closer thing than they would have you believe these days, if not for Bloodraven. I'd always heard that it was Prince Baelor Breakspear who won the battle, said Dunk. Him and Prince Maekar. The hammer and the anvil? The old man's mustache gave a twitch. The fingers leave out much and more. Daemon was the warrior himself that day. No man could stand before him. He broke Lord Aaron's van to pieces and slew the Knight of 9 Stars and Wild Will Waynwood before coming up against Sir Gawain Corbray of the King's Guard. For near an hour they danced together on their horses, wheeling and circling and slashing as men died all around them. It said that whenever Blackfire and Lady Forlorn clashed, you could hear the sound for a league around. It was half a song and half a scream, they say. But when at last the lady faltered, Blackfire closed through Sir Gawain's helm and left him blind and bleeding. Daemon dismounted to see that his fallen foe was not trampled and commanded Red Tusk to carry him back to the maesters in the rear. And there was his mortal error, for the Raven's teeth had gained the top of Weeping Ridge, and Bloodraven saw his half-brother's royal standard 300 yards away, and Daemon and his sons beneath it. He slew Egan first, the elder of the twins, for he knew that Daemon would never leave the boy while warmth lingered in his body, though white shafts fell like rain. Nor did he, though 7 arrows pierced him, driven as much by sorcery as by Bloodraven's bow. Young Aemon took up Blackfire when the blade slipped from his dying father's fingers, so Bloodraven slew him too, the younger of the twins. Thus perished the Black Dragon and his sons. There was much and more afterward, I know. I saw a bit of it myself. The rebels running, bitter steel turning the rout and leading his mad charge. His battle with Blood Raven, second only to the one Damon fought with Gwaine Corbray. Prince Baelor's hammer blow against the rebel rear. The Dornishmen all screaming as they filled the air with spears. But at the end of the day, it made no matter. The war was done when Damon died. So close a thing. If Damon had ridden over Gwaine Corbray and left him to his fate, he might have broken Makar's left before Bloodraven could take the ridge. The day would have belonged to the Black Dragons then, with the hand slain and the road to King's Landing open before them. Damon might have been sitting on the Iron Throne by the time Prince Baelor could come up with his Stormlords and his Dornishmen. The singers can go on about their hammer and their anvil, sir. But it was the Kinslayer who turned the tide. With a white arrow and a black spell. He rules us now as well, make no mistake. King Ares is his creature. It would not surprise me to learn that Bloodraven had ensorcelled his grace to bend him to his will. Small wonder we are cursed. Sir Eustace shook his head and lapsed into a brooding silence. Dunk wondered how much Egg had overheard, but there was no way to ask him. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? He thought. Already the day was growing hotter. Even the flies have fled, Dunk noted. Flies have better sense than knights. They stay out of the sun. He wondered whether he and Egg would be offered hospitality at Como. A tankard of cool brown ale would go down well. Dunk was considering that prospect with pleasure when he remembered what Egg had said about the Red Widow poisoning her husbands. His thirst fled at once. There were worse things than dry throats. There was a time when House Osgrey held all the lands for many leagues around, from Nunney in the east to Cobble Cove, Sir Eustace said. Cold Moat was ours, and the Horseshoe Hills, the caves at Daring Downs, the villages of Dosk and Little Dosk and Brandy Bottom, both sides of Leafy Lake. Osgrey maids wed Florence, Swans, and Tarbecks, even High Towers and Blackwoods. The edge of Watts Wood had come in sight. Dunk shielded his eyes with one hand and squinted at the greenery. For once, he envied Egg in his floppy hat. At least we'll have some shade. Watts Wood once extended all the way to Cold Moat, Sir Eustace said. I do not recall who Watt was. Before the conquest, you could find orcs in his wood, though, and great elks of 20 hands and more. There were more red deer than any man could take in a lifetime, for none but the king and the Checky lion were allowed to hunt here. Even in my father's day, there were trees on both sides of the stream, but the spiders cleared the woods away to make pasture for their cows and sheep and horses. A thin finger of sweat crept down Dunk's chest. He found himself wishing devoutly that his liege lord would keep quiet. It is too hot for talk. It is too hot for riding. It is just too bloody hot, Dunk thought to himself. In the woods, they came upon the carcass of a great brown tree cat, crawling with maggots. Ew, Egg said, as he walked Maester wide around it. That stinks worse than Sir Bennis. Sir Eustace reined up. A tree cat. I had not known there were any left in this wood. I wonder what killed him. When no one answered, he said, I will turn back here. Just continue on the west way, and it will take you straight to Cold Moat. You have the coin? Dunk nodded. Good. Come home with my water, sir. The old knight trotted off, back the way they'd come. When he was gone, Egg said, I thought you should speak to Lady Weber, sir. You should win her to your side with gallant compliments, I had thought. The boy looked as cool and crisp in his checky tunic as Sir Eustace had in his cloak. Am I the only one who sweats? Gallant compliments, Dunk echoed. What sort of gallant compliments? You know, sir. Tell her how fair and beautiful she is. Dunk had doubts. She's outlived 4 husbands. She must be as old as Lady Faith. If I say she's fair and beautiful, and she's old and warty, she will take me for a liar. You just need to find something true to say about her. That's what my brother Dayron does. Even ugly old whores can have nice hair or well-shaped ears, he says. Well-shaped ears? Dunk's doubts were growing. Or pretty eyes. Tell her that her gown brings out the color of her eyes. The lad reflected for a moment. Unless she only has the one eye, like Lord Bloodraven? My lady, that gown brings out the color of your eye. Dunk had heard knights and lordlings mouth such gallantries at other ladies. They never put it quite so badly, though. Good lady, that gown is beautiful. It brings out the color of both of your lovely eyes. Some of the ladies had been old and scrawny, or fat and florid, or pock-scarred and homely, but all wore gowns and had 2 eyes, and as Dunk recalled, they'd been well pleased by the flowery words. What a lovely gown, my lady. It brings out that lovely beauty of your beautiful colored eyes. A hedge knight's life is simpler, Dunk said glumly. If I say the wrong thing, she'd like to sew me in a sack of rocks and throw me in her moat. I doubt she'll have that big of a sack, sir, said Egg. We could use my boot instead. No, Dunk growled. We couldn't. When they emerged from Watts Wood, they found themselves well upstream of the dam. The waters had risen high enough for Dunk to take that soak he dreamed of. Deep enough to drown a man, he thought. On the far side of the bank had been cut through and a ditch dug to divert some of the flow westward. The ditch ran along the road, feeding a myriad of smaller channels that snaked off through the fields. Once we cross the stream, we are in the widow's power. Dunk wondered what he was riding into. He was only one man, with a boy of 10 to guard his back. Egg fanned his face. Sir? Why are we stopped? We're not. Dunk gave his mount his heels and splashed down into the stream. Egg followed on the mule. The water rose as high as Thunder's belly before it began to fall again. They emerged dripping on the widow's side. Ahead, the ditch ran straight as a spear, shining green and golden in the sun. When they spied the towers of Coldmoat several hours later, Dunk stopped to change to his good Dornish tunic and loosen his longsword in its scabbard. He did not want the blade sticking should he need to pull it free. Ed gave his dagger's hilt a shake as well, his face solemn beneath his floppy hat. They rode on side by side, Dunk on the big destrier, the boy upon his mule, the osprey banner flapping listlessly from its staff. Coldmoat came as somewhat of a disappointment after all that Sir Eustace had said of it. Compared to Storm's End or Highgarden and other lordly seats that Dunk had seen, it was a modest castle. But it was a castle, not a fortified watchtower. Its crenellated outer walls stood 30 feet high, with towers at each corner, each one half again the size of Standfast. From every turret and spire, the black banners of Weber hung heavy, each emblazoned with a spotted spider upon a silvery web. Sir, Egg said, the water. Look where it goes. The ditch ended under Cold Moat's eastern walls, spilling into the moat from which the castle took its name. The gurgle of the falling water made Dunk grind his teeth. She will not have my checky water. Come, he said to Dunk. Come, he said to Egg. Sorry. Over the arch of the main gate, a row of spider banners drooped in the still air. Above, the older sigil carved deep into the stone. Centuries of wind and weather had worn it down, but the shape of it was still distinct. A rampant lion, made of checkered squares. The gates beneath were open as they clattered across the drawbridge. Dunk made note of how low the moat had fallen. 6 feet at least, he judged. 2 spearmen barred their way at the portcullis. One had a big black beard, and one did not. The beard demanded to know their purpose here. My Lord of Osgray sent me to treat with Lady Weber, Dunk told him. I am called Sir Duncan the Tall. Well, I knew you weren't Bennis, said the beardless guard. We would have smelled him coming. He had a missing tooth and a spotted spider badge sewn above his heart. The beard was squinting suspiciously at Dunk. No one sees her ladyship unless the long inch gives his leave. You come with me. The stable boy can stay with the horses. I'm a squire, not a stable boy, Egg insisted. Are you blind or only stupid? The beardless guard broke into laughter. The beard put the point of his spear to the boy's throat. Say that again. Dunk gave Egg a clout in the ear. No. Shut your mouth and tend the horses. He dismounted. I'll see Sir Lucas now. The beard lowered his spear. He's in the yard. They passed beneath the spiked iron portcullis and under a murder hole before emerging in the outer ward. Hounds were barking in the kennels, and Dunk could hear singing coming from the leaden glass windows of a 7-sided wooden sept. In front of the smithy, a blacksmith was shoeing a warhorse, with a princess boy assisting. Nearby, a squire was loosing shafts at the archery butts, with a freckled girl with a long braid, while a freckled girl with a long braid matched him shot for shot. The quintain was spinning too, as a half-dozen knights in quilted padding took their turns knocking it around. They found Sir Lucas Longinch amongst the watchers at the quintain, speaking with a great fat septon who was sweating worse than Dunk. A round white pudding of a man, in robes as damp as if he'd worn them in his bath. Inchfield was a lance beside him, stiff and straight, and very tall, though not so tall as Dunk. 6 feet and 7 inches, Dunk judged, and each inch prouder than the last inch. Though he wore black silk and cloth of silver, Sir Lucas looked as cool as if he were walking on the wall. My lord, the guard hailed him. This one comes from the chicken tower for an audience with her ladyship. The septon turned first, with a hoot of delight that made Dunk wonder if he were drunk. Whew! And what is this? A hedge knight? You have large hedges in the reach. The septon made a sign of blessing. May the warrior fight ever at your side. I am Septon Sefton. An unfortunate name, but mine own. And you? I'm Sir Duncan the Tall. A modest fellow, this one, the septon said to Sir Lucas. Were I as large as him, I'd call myself Sir Sefton the Immense. Sir Sefton the Tower. Sir Sefton with the clouds about his ears. His moon face was flushed, and there were wine stains on his robe. Sir Lucas studied Dunk. He was an older man, 40 at least, perhaps as old as 50, sinewy rather than muscular, with a remarkably ugly face. His lips were thick, his teeth a yellow tangle, his nose broad and fleshy, his eyes protruding. And he is angry, Dunk sensed, even before the man said, Hedge knights are beggars with blades at best, outlaws at worst. Be gone with you. We want none of your sort here. Dunk's face darkened. Sir Eustace Osprey sent me from Standfast to treat with the lady of the castle. Osprey? The Septon glanced at Longinch. Osprey of the Checky Lion? I thought House Osprey was extinguished. Near enough as makes no matter. The old man is the last of them. We let him keep a crumbling tower house a few leagues east. Sir Lucas frowned at Dunk. If Sir Eustace wants to talk with her ladyship, let him come himself. His eyes narrowed. You were the one with Barney at the dam. Don't trouble to deny it. I ought to hang you. Seven, save us. The Septon dabbed sweat from his brow with his sleeve. A brigand, Ivy? Oh, that's a big brigand. Sir, repent your evil ways, and the mother will have mercy. The Septon's pious plea was undercut when he farted. Oh dear, forgive my wit, sir. That's what comes of beans and barley bread. I am not a brigand, Dunk told the two of them, with all the dignity that he could muster. The Longinch was unmoved by the denial. Do not presume upon my patience, sir. If you are even a sir. Run back to your chicken tower and tell Sir Eustace to deliver up Sir Bennis Brownstench. If he spares us the trouble of winkling him out of Standfast, her ladyship might be more inclined to clemency. I will speak with her ladyship about Sir Bennis and the trouble at the dam, and about the stealing of our water, too. Stealing? Said Sir Lucas. Say that to Our Lady, and you'll be swimming in a sack before the sun is set. Are you quite certain that you wish to see her? The only thing that Dunk was certain of was that he wanted to drive his fist through Lucas Inchfield's crooked yellow teeth. I've told you what I want. Oh, let him speak with her, the Septon urged. What harm could it do? Sir Duncan has had a long ride beneath this beastly sun. Let the fellow have his say. Sir Lucas studied Dunk again. Our Septon is a godly man. Come. I will thank you to be brief. He strode across the yard, and Dunk was forced to hurry after him. The doors of the castle sept had opened, and worshippers were streaming down the steps. There were knights and squires, a dozen children, several old men, 3 septas in white robes and hoods, and one soft, fleshy lady of high birth, garbed in a gown of dark blue damask, trimmed with Meersch lace, so long its hems were trailing in the dirt. Dunk judged her to be 40. Beneath the spun silver net, her auburn hair was piled high, but the reddest thing about her was her face. My lady, Sir Lucas said when they stood before her in her septus, this hedge knight claims to bring a message from Sir Eustace Osprey. Will you hear it? If you wish it, Sir Lucas. She peered at Dunk so hard that he could not help but recall Egg's talk of sorcery. I don't think this one bathes in blood to keep her beauty. The widow was stout and square, with an oddly pointed head that her hair could not quite conceal. Her nose was too big, and her mouth too small. She did have 2 eyes, he was relieved to see, but all thought of gallantry had abandoned Dunk by then. Sir Eustace bid me talk with you concerning the recent trouble about your dam. She blinked. The dam, you say? A crowd was gathering about them. Dunk could feel unfriendly eyes upon him. The stream, he said. The Checky water. Your ladyship built a dam across it. Oh, I am quite sure I haven't, she replied. Why, I have been in my devotions all morning, sir. Dunk heard Sir Lucas chuckle. I did not mean to say that your ladyship built the dam herself, only that without that water, all our crops will die. The small folk, they have beans and barley in the fields, and melons. Truly? I am very fond of melons. Her small mouth made a happy bow. What sort of melons are they? Dunk glanced uneasily at the ring of faces and felt his own face growing hot. Something is amiss here. Longinch is playing me for a fool. Milady, Milady, could we continue our discussion in some more private place? A silver says the great oath means to better, someone japed, and a roar of laughter went up all around him. The lady cringed away, half in terror, and raised both hands to shield her face. One of the scepters moved quickly to her side and put a protective arm around her shoulders. And what is all this merriment? The voice cut through the laughter, cool and firm. Will no one share the jape? Sir Knight, why are you troubling my good sister? It was the girl he had seen earlier at the archery butts. She had a quiver of arrows on one hip and held a longbow that was just as tall as she was, which wasn't very tall. If Dunk was shy an inch of 7 feet, the archer was shy an inch of 5. He could have spanned her waist with his two hands. Her red hair was bound up in a braid so long it brushed past her thighs, and she had a dimpled chin, a snub nose, and a light spray of freckles across her cheeks. Forgive us, Lady Rohan. The speaker was a pretty young lord with the Caswell centaur embroidered on his doublet. This great oath took the Lady Helicent for you. Dunk looked from one lady to the other. You are the Red Widow? He heard himself blurt out. But you're too young? The girl tossed her longbow to the lanky lad he'd seen her shooting it with. I am 5 and 20, as it happens. Or was it small, you meant to say? Pretty. It was pretty. Dunk did not know where that came from, but he was glad it came. He liked her nose and the strawberry blonde color of her hair and the small but well-shaped breasts beneath her leather jerkin. I thought you'd be... I mean, they said you were 4 times a widow, so... My first husband died when I was 10. He was 12. My father, Squire, written down upon the red grass field. My husband seldom linger long, I fear. The last died in the spring. That was what they always said of those who had perished during the great spring sickness 2 years past. He died in the spring. Many tens of thousands had died in the spring. Amongst them, a wise old king and 2 young princes full of promise. I, I, I'm sorry for all your losses, milady. A gallantry, you lunk. Give her gallantry. I want to say your gown. My gown? She glanced down at her boots and breeches, loose linen tunic, and leather jerkin. I wear no gown, sir. Your hair, your hair. I meant your hair. It's soft and. And how would you know that, sir? If you had ever touched my hair, I should think that I might remember. Not soft, Dunk said miserably. Red. I meant to say your hair is very red. Very red, sir? Oh, not as red as your face, I hope. She laughed, and the onlookers laughed with her. All but Sir Lucas Longinch. My lady, he broke in, this man is one of Standfast's sellswords. He was with Bennis of the Brown Shield when he attacked your diggers at the dam and carved up Walmer's face. Old Osgray sent him to treat with you. He did, milady. I'm called Sir Duncan the Tall.
Sir Duncan the Dim, more like, said a bearded knight who wore the threefold thunderbolt of Legud. More guffaws sounded. Even Lady Helicent had recovered herself enough to give a chuckle. Did the courtesy of Cold Moat die with my lord father? The girl asked. No, not a girl. A woman grown. How did Sir Duncan come to make such an error, I wonder? Dunk gave Inchfield an evil look.
The fault was mine.
Was it?
The Red Widow looked Dunk over from his heels up to his head, though her gaze lingered longest on his chest.
A tree and a shooting star. I have never seen those arms before.
She touched his tunic, tracing a limb of his elm tree with two fingers.
And painted, not sewn. The Dornish paint their silks, I've heard. But you look too big to be a Dornishman.
Not all Dornishmen are small, milady.
Dunk could feel her fingers through the silk. Her hand was freckled too.
Oh, I'll bet she's freckled all over.
His mouth was oddly dry. I spent a year in Dorne. Do all the oaks grow so tall there? She said, as her fingers traced the tree limb around his heart.
It's meant to be an elm, milady.
I shall remember. She drew her hand back solemn.
The ward is too hot and dusty for a conversation.
Septon, show Sir Duncan to my audience chamber. It would be my great pleasure, good sister. Our guest will have a thirst. You may send for a flagon of wine as well. Must I? The fat man beamed. Well, if it please you, I will join you as soon as I have changed. Unhooking her belt and quiver, she handed them to her companion. I'll want Master Sarek as well. I'll want Maester Sarek as well. Sir Lucas, go ask him to attend me.
I will bring him at once, my lady,
said Lucas Longinch. The look she gave her Castellan was cool. No need. I know you have many duties to perform about the castle. It will suffice if you send Maester Sarek to my chambers.
My lady?
Dunk called after her.
My squire was made to wait by the gates. Might he join us as well?
Your squire? When she smiled, she looked a girl of 5 and 10, not a woman of 5 and 20.
A pretty girl full of mischief and laughter.
If it please you, certainly. Don't drink the wine, sir. Don't drink the wine, Egg whispered to him as they waited with the Septon in her audience chamber. The stone floors were covered with sweet-smelling rushes. The walls hung with tapestries of tourney scenes and battles. Dunk snorted.
She has no need to poison me,
He whispered back.
She thinks I'm some great lout with peas porridge between his ears.
As it happens, my good sister likes peas porridge, said Septon Sefton, as he reappeared with a flagon of wine, a flagon of water, and 3 cups. Yes, yes, I heard. I'm fat, not deaf. He filled 2 cups with wine and one with water. The third he gave to Egg, who gave it a long, dubious look and put it aside. The Septon took no notice. This is an Arbor vintage, he was telling Dunk. Very fine, and the poison gives it a special piquancy. He winked at Egg. I seldom touch the grapes myself, but I have heard. He had to Dunk a cup. The wine was lush and sweet, but Dunk sipped it gingerly, and only after the Septon had quaffed down half of his in 3 big lip-smacking gulps. Ed crossed his arms and continued to ignore his water. She does like peas porridge, the Septon said. And you as well, sir. I know my good sister. When I first saw you in the yard, I half hoped you were some suitor, come from King's Landing to claim my lady's hand. Dunk furrowed his brow. How did you know I was from King's Landing, Septon? King's Landers have a certain way of speaking. The Septon took a gulp of wine, sloshed it about his mouth, swallowed, and sighed with pleasure. I have served there many years, attending our High Septon in the Great Sept of Baelor. He sighed again. You would not know the city since the spring. The fires changed it. A quarter of the houses gone, and another quarter empty. The rats are gone as well. That is the queerest thing. I never thought to see a city without rats. Dunk had heard that too. Were you there during the Great Spring Sickness? Oh, indeed. A dreadful time, sir, dreadful indeed. Strong men would wake healthy at the break of day and be dead by evenfall. So many died so quickly, there was no time to bury them. They piled them in the dragon pit instead. And when the corpses were 10 feet deep, Lord Rivers commanded the pyromancers to burn them. The light of the fires shone through the windows, as it did of yore when living dragons still nested beneath the dome. By night, you could see the glow all through the city, the dark green glow of wildfire. The color green still haunts me to this day. They say the spring was bad in Lannisport and worse in Old Town, but in King's Landing, it cut down 4 of 10. Neither young nor old were spared, nor rich nor poor, nor great nor humble. Our good High Septon was taken, the god's own voice on earth, with a third of the most devout and near all of our silent sisters. His Grace King Daeron, sweet Mataris, and bowed Valar the hand. Oh, it was a dreadful time. By the end, half the city was praying to the stranger. He had another drink. And where were you, sir? In Dorne, said Dunk. Thank the mother for her mercy, then. The Grey Spring sickness had never come to Dorne, perhaps because the Dornish had closed their borders and their ports, as had the Aarons of the Vale, who had also been spared. All this talk of death is enough to put a man off wine, but cheer is hard to come by in such times as we were living. The drought endures, for all our prayers. The King's Wood is one great tinderbox, and fires rage there day and night. Bittersteel and the sons of Daemon Blackfire are hatching plots in Tyrosh, and Dagon Greyjoy's Krakens prowl the sunset sea like wolves, raiding as far south as the Arbor. They carried off half the wealth of Fair Isle, it said, and 100 women, too. Lord Farman is repairing his defenses, though that strikes me as akin to the man who claps his pregnant daughter in a chastity belt when her belly's as big as mine. Lord Bracken is dying slowly on the Trident, and his eldest son perished in the spring. That means Sir Otho must succeed. The Blackwoods will never stomach the brood of Bracken as a neighbor. It will mean war. Dunk knew about the ancient enmity between the Blackwoods and the Brackens. Won't their liege force a peace? Alas, said Septon Sefton, Lord Tully is a boy of 8, surrounded by women. River Run will do little, and King Ares will do less. Unless some maester writes a book about it, the whole matter may escape his royal notice. Lord Rivers is not like to let any Brackens in to see him. Pray recall, our hand was born half Blackwood. If he acts at all, it will be only to help his cousin to bring the brute to bay. The mother marked Lord Rivers on the day that he was born, and Bittersteel marked him once again upon the red grass field. Dunk knew he meant Bloodraven. Brendan Rivers was the hand's true name. His mother had been a Blackwood, his father, King Aegon IV. The fat man drank his wine and rattled on. As for Ares, his grace cares more for old scrolls and dusty prophecies than for lords and laws. He will not even bestir himself to sire and heir. Queen Eleanor prays daily at the Great Sept, beseeching the mother above to bless her with a child. Yet she remains a maid. Ares keeps his own apartments, and it is said that he will sooner take a book to bed than any woman. He filled his cup again. Make no mistake, 'tis Lord Rivers who rules us, with his spells and spies. There is no one to oppose him. Prince Makor sulks at Summerhall, nursing his grievances against his royal brother. Prince Regal is as meek as he is mad, and his children are, well, children. Friends and favorites of Lord Rivers fill every office. The lords of the small council lick his hand, and this new Grand Maester is as steeped in sorcery as he is. The Red Keep is garrisoned by ravens' teeth, and no man sees the king without his leave. Dunk shifted uncomfortably in the seat. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? 1,000 eyes, and one, the old riddle went. He hoped the king's hand did not have 1,000 ears in one as well. Some of what Sefton was saying sounded treasonous. He glanced at Egg to see how he was taking all of this. The boy was struggling with all his might to hold his tongue. The Septon pushed himself to his feet. My good sister will be a while yet, as with all great ladies. The first 10 gowns she tries will be found not to suit her mood. Will you take more wine? Without waiting for an answer, he refilled both cups. The lady I mistook, said Dunk, anxious to speak of something else. Is she your sister? We are all children of the seven, sir. But apart from that, dear me, no. Lady Helephant was sister to Sir Roland Uffrink, Lady Rohan's fourth husband, who died in the spring. My brother was his predecessor, Sir Simon Staunton, who had the great misfortune to choke upon a chicken bone. Cold moat crawls with revenants, it must be said. The husbands die, yet their kin remain, to drink my lady's wines and eat her sweetmeats, like a plague of plump pink locusts, done up in silk and velvet. He wiped his mouth. And yet she must wed again, and soon. Must? Said Dunk. Her lord father demands it. Lord Wyman wanted grandsons to carry on his line. When he sickened, he tried to wed her to the Long Inch, so he might die knowing that she had a strong man to protect her. But Rohan refused him. His lordship took his vengeance in his will. If she remains unwed on the second anniversary of her father's passing, Coldmoat and its lands pass to his cousin Wendell. Perhaps you glimpsed him in the yard. A short man with a goiter on his neck, much given to flatulence. Though it is small of me to say so, I am cursed with excess wind myself. Be that as it may. Sir Wendell is grasping and stupid, but his lady wife is Lord Rowan's sister, and damnably fertile. That cannot be denied. She whelps as often as he farts. Their sons are quite as bad as he is, their daughters worse, and all of them have begun to count the days. Lord Rowan has upheld the will, so her ladyship has only till the next new moon. Why has she waited so long? Dunk wondered aloud. The Septon shrugged. If truth be told, there has been a dearth of suitors. My good sister is not hard to look upon, you will have noticed, and a stout castle and broad lands add to her charms. You would think that younger sons and landless knights would swarm about her ladyship like flies. You would be wrong. The 4 dead husbands make them wary, and there are those who will say that she is barren too, though never in her hearing, unless they yearn to see the inside of a crow cage. She has carried two children to term, a boy and a girl, but neither lived to see a name day. Those few who are not put off by talk of poisonings and sorcery want no part of the Long Inch. Lord Wyman charged him on his deathbed to protect his daughter from unworthy suitors, which he has taken to mean all suitors. Any man who means to have her hand would need to face his sword first. He finished his wine and set the cup aside. That is not to say there has been no one. Clayton Caswell and Simon Laygood have been the most persistent, though they seem more interested in her lands than in her person. Were I given to wagering, I should place my gold on Gerald Lannister. He has yet to put in an appearance, but they say he is golden haired and quick of wit, and more than 6 feet tall. And Lady Weber is much taken with his letters. The lady in question stood in the doorway beside a homely young maester with a great hook nose. You would lose your wager, good brother. Gerald would never willingly forsake the pleasures of Lannisport and the splendor of Casterly Rock for some little lordship. He has way more influence as Lord Tybalt's brother and advisor than he could ever hope for as my husband. As for the others, Sir Simon would need to sell off half my land to pay his debts, and Sir Clayton trembles like a leaf whenever the Long Inch deigns to look his way. Besides, he is prettier than I am, and you, Septon, have the biggest mouth in Westeros. A large belly requires a large mouth, my lady, said Septon Sefton, utterly unabashed. Else it soon becomes a small one. Are you the Red Widow? Egg asked, astonished. I'm near as tall as you are. Another boy made that same observation not half a year ago. I sent him to the rack to make him taller. When Lady Rohan settled onto the high seat on a dais, she pulled her braid forward over her left shoulder. It was so long that the end of it lay coiled in her lap, like a sleeping cat. Sir Duncan, I should not have teased you in the yard when you were trying so hard to be gracious. It was only that you blushed so red. Was there no girl to tease you in the village where you grew so tall? The village was King's Landing. He did not mention Flea Bottom. There were girls, but the sort of teasing that went on in Flea Bottom sometimes involved cutting off a toe. I expect they were afraid to tease you. Lady Rohan stroked her braid. No doubt they were frightened of your size. Do not think ill of Lady Helicent, I pray you. My good sister is a simple creature, but she has no harm in her. For all of her piety, she could not dress herself without her septus. It was not her doing. The mistake was mine. You lie most gallantly. I know it was Sir Lucas. He is a man of cruel humors, and you offended him on sight. How? Dunk said, puzzled. I never did him any harm. She smiled a smile that made him wish that she was plainer. I saw you standing with him. You're taller by a hand or near enough. It has been a long while since Sir Lucas met anyone he could not look down on. How old are you, sir? Near 20, if it please, milady. Dunk liked the ring of 20, though most likely he was a year younger, maybe even 2. No one knew for certain, least of all him. He must have had a mother and a father like everybody else, but he'd never known them, not even their names. And no one in Flea Bottom had ever cared much when he'd been born, or to whom. And are you as strong as you appear? How strong do I appear, milady? Oh, strong enough to annoy Sir Lucas. He is my castellan, though not by choice. Like Codemote, he is a legacy of my father. Did you come to knighthood on some battlefield, Sir Duncan? Your speech suggests that you were not born of noble blood, if you will forgive my saying so. I was born of gutter blood. A hedge knight named Sir Arlen of Pennytree took me on to squire for him when I was just a boy. He taught me chivalry and the arts of war. And this same Sir Arlen, did he knight you? Dunk shuffled his feet. One of his boots was half unlaced, he saw. No one else would like to do it. Where is Sir Arlen now? He died. He raised his eyes. He could lace up his boots later. I buried him on a hillside. Did he fall valiantly in battle? No. There were rains. He caught a chill. Old men are frail, I know. I learned that from my second husband. I was 13 when we wed. He would have been 5 and 50 on his next name day had he lived long enough to see it. When he was half a year in the ground, I gave him a little son. But the stranger came for him as well. The Septons sent his father. The Septon said his father wanted him beside him. What do you think, sir? Well, Dunk said hesitantly, that might be, my lady. Nonsense, she said. The boy was born too weak, such a tiny thing. He scarce had strength enough to nurse. Still, the gods gave his father 5 and 50 years. You would think they might have granted more than 3 days to the son. You would. Dunk knew little and less about the gods. He went to Sept sometimes and prayed to the warrior to lend strength to his arms, but elsewise, he let the seven be. I am sorry your Sir Arlen died, she said, and sorrier still that you took service with Sir Eustace. All old men are not the same, Sir Duncan. You would do well to go home to Pennytree. I have no home but where I swear my sword. Dunk had never seen Pennytree. He couldn't even say if it was in the reach. Swear it here, then. The times are uncertain. I have need of knights. You look as though you have a healthy appetite, Sir Duncan. How many chickens can you eat? At Coldmoat, you would have your fill of warm pink meat and sweet fruit tarts. Your squire looks in need of sustenance as well. He is so scrawny that all his hair is falling out. We'll have him share a cell with other boys of his own age. He'll like that. My master at arms can train him in all the arts of war. I train him, said Dunk defensively. And who else? Bennis? Old Osprey? The chickens? There had been days when Dunk had said egg to chasing chickens. It helps make him quicker, he thought. But he knew that if he said it, she would laugh. She was distracting him with her snub nose and her freckles. Dunk had to remind himself of why Sir Eustace had sent him here. My sword is sworn to my Lord of Osprey, my lady, he said, and that's the way it is. So be it, sir. Let us speak of less pleasant matters. Lady Rohan gave her braid a tug. We do not suffer attacks on Coldmoat or its people, so tell me why I should not have you sewn in a sack. I came to parley, he reminded her, and I have drunk your wine. The taste still lingered in his mouth, rich and sweet. So far, it had not poisoned him. Perhaps it was the wine that made him bold. And you don't have a sack big enough for me. To his relief, Egg's jape made her smile. I have several that are big enough for Bennis, though. Maester Sarek says Walmer's face was sliced open almost to the bone. Sir Bennis lost his temper with the man, milady. Sir Eustace sent me here to pay the blood price. The blood price? She laughed. He is an old man, I know, but I had not realized that he was so old as that. Does he think we're living in the age of heroes, when a man's life was reckoned to be worth no more than a sack of silver? The digger was not killed, my lady, Dunk reminded her. No one was killed that I saw. His face was cut, that's all. Her fingers danced idly along her braid. How much does Sir Eustace reckon Walmer's cheek to be worth, pray? 1 silver stag and 3 for you, milady. Sir Eustace sets a niggard's price upon my honor. Though 3 silvers are better than 3 chickens, I grant you. He would do better to deliver Bennis up for me for chastisement.
Would this involve the sack you mentioned?
It might. She coiled her braid around one hand. Osgray can keep his silver. Only blood can pay for blood.
Well, said Dunk, it may be as you say, milady, but why not send for that man that Ben has cut and ask him if he'd sooner have a silver stag or Bennis in a sack?
Oh, he'd pick the silver if he couldn't have both. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all, sir. It is not his choice to make, though. This is about the lion and the spider now, not some peasant's cheek. It is Bennis I want, and Bennis I shall have. No one rides onto my land and does harm to one of mine and escapes to laugh about it.
Your ladyship rode onto Standfast land and did harm to one of Sir Eustace's, Dunk said, before he stopped to think about it.
Did I? She tugged her braid again. If you mean the sheep stealer, the man was notorious. I had twice complained to Osgray, yet he did nothing. I do not ask thrice. The king's law grants me the power of pit and gallows. It was Egg who answered then. On your own lands, the boy insisted. The king's law gives the lords the power of pit and gallows on their own lands. Clever boy, she said. If you know that much, you will also know that landed knights have no right to punish without their liege lord's leave. Sir Eustace holds standfast of Lord Rowan. Bennis broke the king's peace when he drew blood, and he must answer for it. She looked to Dunk. If Sir Eustace will deliver Bennis to me, I'll slit his nose, and that will be the end of it. If I must come and take him, I make no such promises. Dunk had a sudden sick feeling in the pit of his stomach.
I will tell him, but he won't give up Sir Bennis.
He hesitated.
The dam was the cause of all the trouble. If your ladyship would consent to take it down,
impossible, declared the young maester by Lady Ron's side.
Cold Moat supports 20 times as many small folk as does Standfast. Her ladyship has fields of wheat and corn and barley, all dying from the drought. She has half a dozen orchards, apples and apricots, and 3 kinds of pears. She has cows about the calf, 500 head of black-nosed sheep, and she breeds the finest horses in the reach. We have a dozen mares about to foal.
Sir Eustace has sheep too, Dunk said.
He has melons in the fields, beans and barley corn, and
you were taking water for the moat, Egg said loudly.
I was getting to the moat, Dunk thought.
The moat is essential to Cold Moat's defenses, the maester insisted. Do you suggest that Lady Rohan leave herself open to attack in such uncertain times as these?
Well, said Dunk slowly, a dry moat is still a moat, and Milady has strong walls, with ample men to defend them.
Sir Duncan, Lady Rohan said, I was 10 years old when the Black Dragon rose. I begged my father not to put himself at risk, or at least to leave my husband. Who would protect me if both my men were gone? So he took me up onto the ramparts and pointed out to Cold Moat's strong points. Keep them strong, he said to me, and they will keep you safe. If you see to your defenses, no man may do you harm. The first thing he pointed at was the moat. She stroked her cheek with the tail of her braid. My first husband perished on the red grass field. My father found me others, but the stranger took them too. I no longer trust in men, no matter how ample they may seem. I trust in stone and steel and water. I trust in moats, sir, and mine will not go dry.
What your father said, that's well and good, said Dunk, but it doesn't give you the right to take Osgray water.
She tugged her braid and said, I suppose Sir Eustace told you that the stream was his.
For 1,000 years, said Dunk. It's named the Checky Water. That's plain.
So it is, she tugged again, once, twice, thrice. As the river is called the Mander, though the Manderleys were driven from its bank 1,000 years ago. High Garden is still High Garden, though the last gardener died on the field of fire. Casterly Rock teems with Lannisters, and nowhere are Casterly to be found. The world changes, sir. This Checky water rises in the Horseshoe Hills, which were wholly mine when last I looked. The water is mine as well. Maester Theric, show him. The maester descended from the dais. He could not have been much older than Dunk, but in his gray robes and chain collar, he had an air of somber wisdom that belied his years. In his hands was an old parchment. See for yourself, sir, he said as he unrolled it and offered it to Dunk. Dunk the lunk, thick as a castle's wall. He felt his cheeks reddening, and gingerly he took the parchment from the maester and scowled at the writing. Not a word of it was intelligible to him, but he knew the wax seal beneath the ornate signature. The three-headed dragon of House Targaryen. The king's seal. He was looking at a royal decree of some sort. Dunk moved his head from side to side so they would think that he was reading. There's a word here I can't make out, he muttered after a moment. Egg, come have a look. You have sharper eyes than me. The boy darted to his side. Which word, sir? Which word? Dunk pointed. That one? Oh. Egg read quickly, then raised his eyes to Dunk's and gave him a little nod. It is her stream. She has a paper. Dunk felt as though he'd been punched in the stomach. The king's own seal. This. There must be some mistake. The old man's sons died in service to the king. Why would his grace take his stream away? If King Daeron had been a less forgiving man, he should have lost his head as well. For half a heartbeat, Dunk was lost. What do you mean? What are you saying? She means, said Maester Theric, that Sir Eustace Osgrey is a rebel and a traitor. Sir Eustace chose the Black Dragon over the Red, in hopes that a Blackfire king might restore the lands and castles that the Osgreys had lost under the Targaryens, Lady Rohan said. Chiefly, he wanted Coldmoat. His sons paid for his treason with their life's blood. When he brought their bones home and delivered his daughter to the king's men for a hostage, his wife threw herself from the top of Standfast Tower. Did Sir Eustace tell you that? Her smile was sad. No, I didn't think so. The Black Dragon? You swore your sword to a traitor, you lunk. You ate a traitor's bread and you slept beneath the rebel's roof? Milady, he said, groping. The Black Dragon? That was 15 years ago. This is now. And there's a drought. Even if he was a rebel once, Sir Eustace still needs water. The Red Widow rose and smoothed her skirts. He had best pray for some rain then. That was when Dunk recalled Osgrey's parting words in the wood. If you will not grant him a share of the water for his own sake, do it for his son. His son? Adam. He served here as your father's page and squire. Lady Rohan's face was stone. Come closer, sir. He did not know what else to do but to obey. The days added a good foot to her height, yet even so, Dunk towered over her. Kneel, she said, and so he did. The slap she gave him had all her strength behind it, and she was stronger than she looked. His cheek burned, and he could taste blood in his mouth from a broken lip. But she hadn't truly hurt him. For a moment, all Dunk could think of was grabbing her by that long red braid and pulling her across his lap to slap her arse, as you would a spoiled child. If I do, she'll scream though, and 20 knights will come bursting in to kill me. You dare appeal to me in Adam's name? Her nostrils flared. Remove yourself from Cold Moat at once!